From Mark Cuban receiving not one but two major fines, to Ben Simmons getting the largest one in NBA history, here are the biggest NBA fines ever. Kicking off our list at number 10 is none other than the legendary Mark Cuban. You know him from Shark Tank, and he's definitely not afraid to speak his mind. Well, his big mouth landed him a hefty fine of $500,000 for criticizing referees in 2020. Yeah, you heard that right. Mark loves to roast the NBA and its officials, but this time it cost him big time. It all went down on March 6, 2020, after a game between the Dallas Mavericks and the Atlanta Hawks. Cuban was fuming over an overturned goaltending call and took to Twitter to vent his frustrations. But Commissioner Adam Silver wasn't having it, and he slapped Cuban with the mother of all fines. But wait, there's more. Cuban doesn't settle for just one spot on our list. He's an overachiever, folks. He also managed to get hit with a $600,000 fine for making public comments that were detrimental to the league. This time it wasn't about the referees, nope, it was about the Dallas Mavericks. He went on a podcast and actually told his own team that he wanted them to lose. Can you believe that? Next up, we have a brawl that shocked the NBA. It was the Knicks versus the Nuggets in 2006, and it wasn't a pretty sight. These teams let their fists do the talking, and the result? A jaw-dropping $2.2 million in fines. Yeah, you heard that right. The fight got so intense that it spilled into the stands, endangering the fans. And let me tell you, this brawl had it all, including one epic backpedal punch from Carmelo Anthony. The league came down hard on both teams, and almost 7 players were suspended, making sure everyone knew that violence wouldn't be tolerated. It's not just violence that isn't tolerated in the NBA, but also discrimination. Now, let's talk about a truly ugly incident involving none other than Donald Sterling. And brace yourself, folks, because it's about racist comments. Yep, you know it's going to be bad. TMZ Sports dropped a bombshell 2013 recording of Sterling talking to his mistress, and let's just say it wasn't pretty. He made some disgusting remarks about not wanting his mistress to associate with black people, and it sparked outrage throughout the league. NBA Commissioner Adam Silver had no choice but to ban Sterling for life and drop a $2.5 million fine on him. The pressure got so intense that Sterling eventually sold the team for a whopping $2 billion. Talk about a costly lesson in not being a racist jerk. But Sterling isn't the only one who had to pay for his mistakes. Mickey Arison did too. Once upon a time, Miami Heat owner Mickey Arison had a little Twitter mishap. It was during the 2011 NBA lockout, and Arison was feeling a little hot under the collar. So he decided to publicly vent his frustrations by calling the NBA management a bunch of greedy bastards who made stupid decisions, which was, of course, not a good look. The league officials weren't amused and swiftly reminded Arison that there are some things team owners and players can't say in public. And to teach him a lesson, they smacked him with a hefty $250,000 penalty. Let this be a lesson to us all. Think twice before hitting that tweet button. This next Phoenix Suns owner, though, got slapped with a massive $10 million fine for being a terrible boss. Yep, I'm talking about Robert Sarver. This guy takes the cake when it comes to creating a toxic work environment. Not only did he get fined a mind-blowing $10 million, but he also got suspended for a year. And it wasn't just a bunch of rumors either. ESPN published an article that spilled all the tea on Sarver's scandalous ways. Why? Well, let's just say he had a knack for using racist slurs, treating minorities and women unfairly, and making incredibly inappropriate comments about his employees. He once even told a coach to fire a minority agent. Yikes! The NBA didn't take kindly to Sarver's actions, and after an independent investigation, they hit him with the heaviest single fine in league history. They also suspended him for a year, but that's not even the end of the story. Folks in the league, including some top players and sponsors, wanted Sarver to sell the team and get out of the NBA altogether. Well, Sarver eventually gave in and sold the Suns for a whopping $4 billion. Not too shabby considering he only paid $4 million for the team back in 2004. Oh, and he also had to sell his shares in the Phoenix Mercury organization. Good riddance, Sarver. Then we have a find that's a bit out of the ordinary. Vladimir Radmanovich, a player for the LA Lakers, got hit with a hefty $500,000 fine. But here's the twist, it wasn't for something that happened on the court. Nope, it was for his love of snowboarding. As it turns out, the NBA's got rules against players participating in extreme sports that could put their health at risk. Unfortunately for Radmanovich, he ended up separating his shoulder while shredding the slopes. Ouch! So remember folks, sometimes you gotta leave the snowboarding to the pros. Well, next we have a find that caused quite a stir in the basketball world. The San Antonio Spurs, one of the big contenders in the Western Conference, found themselves in hot water when their head coach, Greg Popovich, decided to rest his star players during a game. You can imagine how fans and the league reacted to this bold move. The NBA wasn't happy to say the least, and they slapped the Spurs with a $250,000 fine. They called it a disservice to the league and fans. But hey, the story doesn't end there. The Spurs went on to face off against LeBron James and the Miami Heat in the NBA Finals in both 2013 and 2014. Talk about turning a controversial decision into a championship opportunity. Then there's good old Joe Dumars. Back in 2010, Adrian Wojnarowski, also known as Woj, dropped a massive bomb on Detroit Pistons GM Joe Dumars. How massive? Try $500,000 worth. Here's what went down. The NBA discovered that insiders were leaking confidential league memos left and right, so they decided to conduct a little sting operation to catch the culprit. They sent out slightly different memos to each team and waited to see which version would end up in the press. And wouldn't you know it, Dumars got caught red-handed. He was leaking information to Woj in exchange for some favorable coverage of himself and the Pistons. What a rookie move, am I right? But can we really blame Dumars for wanting some good press? I mean, the Pistons weren't exactly lighting up the league at the time, and he was definitely feeling the heat. Let's just say he wasn't exactly a shining star in the GM world. This next player found himself in a bit of a pickle when he refused to follow the league's health and safety protocols. And boy did it cost him. Throughout the season, Kyrie Irving racked up a whopping $16 million in fines. That's right, you heard it correctly. $16 million. Now, let's talk about the reason behind all this madness. Irving made the choice not to get vaccinated against COVID-19. And whether you agree with his decision or not, one thing is for sure. It came with a hefty price tag. At the start of the season, the Brooklyn Nets made it clear that Irving wouldn't be allowed to participate in home games due to local COVID restrictions. And as if that wasn't enough, he couldn't even play away games. But hold on folks, the story takes a twist. Eventually, the team had a change of heart and allowed Irving to become a part-time player, granting him permission to participate in the team's home games. Talk about a roller coaster ride of fines and exceptions. Well, finally, let's wrap this video up with the single biggest fine in NBA history. Of course, I'm talking about none other than Ben Simmons himself. The 76ers hit him with a $1.4 million fine for missing 4 preseason games. And that's just the beginning. The team kept slapping him with fines for every game he missed until he had to cough up over $17 million in fines for the 2021-2022 season. Ouch! Simmons tried to excuse his absences by saying he had back problems and mental health issues, but the team wasn't buying it. They even made him see a shrink, but he refused to work with them. And that's how you end up with the biggest total fine in NBA history. And that's all for the biggest NBA fines. Which one of these was the craziest to hear about? Let us know in the comments below, and we'll see you in the next one.